here at the Smart Lighting Conference 2017 in Hamburg, Germany, with Tony G, a security consultant with Pen Test Partners in the UK. Pen Test standing for penetration testing. Tony's company looks at the security of conventional computer systems, as well as more and more these days Internet of Things devices. And Pen Test has done everything from getting talking dolls to swear. One called Kayla used some bad language, courtesy of Pen Test. They've hacked Mitsubishi sport utility vehicles. They've hacked smart smart TVs, I should say, and all sorts of other tricks. I understand they have figured out how to hack sex toys. So, with that as an introduction, I need to ask Tony. Tony, should the lighting industry be worried?
One word, yes, absolutely. You know, the reality of the situation is the lighting industry are moving towards Internet of Things devices, and they're making their systems much more connected. Now, most of the stuff that we can buy is consumer-based devices, so, you know, the Philips Hue, for example.
Right.
But actually the stuff which is really interesting is the smart lighting that's going into infrastructure and the building management systems and those high sensitive systems.
Right.
Now we can't get our hands on those very easily, which is why we look at the smaller stuff you can buy off Amazon, so to speak. Yeah. But the reality is, companies who are making these systems are applying this or putting the same lack of security into those systems.
Right, right.
You know, there's a saying within the security industry that the S in IoT stands for security. There is no S in IoT.
Yeah, I got it. Yeah. I got it. Yeah.
And this is the real problem, I think, and this is what we see when we look at these devices.
So, how easy has it been to hack some of these devices? And by implication, I imagine it would be just as easy to hack into lighting systems if the lighting manufacturer doesn't take the proper precautions.
It's actually trivially easy.
Trivially
easy. Yeah. In a lot of cases, it is incredibly easy to hack into these systems. A lot of them will use Wi-Fi. And Wi-Fi, in a lot of cases, they won't have secured that very well. Some of them will use Bluetooth. Now, there are some advantages to Bluetooth, but the reality is it can still be fairly compromised.
Okay.
But the biggest issue really is that a lot of these firms are rushing to get out to market with the product that they're making. And as a result, they don't actually think about applying security to that device or applying the right level of security.
Right.
And so they're rushing out and not necessarily testing it and validating it and checking for vulnerabilities before they release it to the public. And so as a result, they find that there's trivial vulnerabilities that enable us to get very serious compromises on them.
There ought to be a law.
There ought to be a law, you're absolutely right. Unfortunately, there is not.
Right.
There is a number of kind of standards. There's one of the ones which we're a founding member of is the IoT Security Foundation.
Yeah.
And what they do is they work with businesses to help define a standard of good security for the Internet of Things devices. The reality is that you know, the manufacturers are going faster than that can actually be produced. But what they're finding is that suddenly they end up on front page of the BBC or front page of various news websites, and that makes them stand up and pay attention.
You mentioned, I mentioned the TV before.
Yeah.
Tell us about that. I think, if I recall correctly, a smart TV was actually recording the voices of the people controlling the television.
Yeah,
is that right?
Exactly. So it's it's a pretty old story now, but essentially it was the one we looked at was Samsung Smart TVs, and what they were doing is they were listening to what you're saying because they had voice control functionality. Now the problem is that they didn't actually secure that very well. So anything you said in front of your TV was being sent over the internet to a company called Nuance,
Right.
Nuance send it back after they've decoded it,
Right.
which is absolutely fine doing that over the internet. Unfortunately, they hadn't applied any level of security to it.
Right.
So anybody sat between yourself and Nuance could intercept your voice and listen to what you're saying in front of your TV. Now that's a little bit sensitive, and yeah, there might have been some information being heard, but the reality is vulnerabilities in the Internet of Things have got much worse since then.
Worse.
Absolutely.
Worse. Why? How did that happen? Is it?
Well, listening to you, it's very hard to intercept that traffic. You need to be in the right network position. But stealing someone's Wi-Fi key, for example, is really easy to do. And tomorrow I'll talk about a Wi-Fi kettle where you can really easily just recover the key for the Wi-Fi password from that kettle.
Right.
Just by pointing a strong Wi-Fi
Right.
antenna against it. And then you start to think about the more serious issues, such as the DVRs that the Mirai botnet exploited, where these devices sit within the internal network.
About a year or so
Exactly,
ago.
yeah. So these devices are sat within the internal network, and yet they can be accessed from the internet with administrative privileges, and subsequently they could be used to compromise the internal network of the business.
You mentioned one earlier, I think, about a doorknob.
A doorbell, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Tell us about that.
So the Ring doorbell,
Yeah.
to give Ring their dues, they've got on board with security now, and they're much better than they were. But at the time, what happened is they developed this doorbell, which you affix to the outside of your door with two screws. Unfortunately, anybody can unscrew those two screws, and they actually guaranteed it on their box. They said on the back, if someone steals it, they'll replace it free of charge. Problem is that by taking it off the wall, what you could find is there's a button on the other side of it. You tap that, and then it allows you to connect to the device and then get the Wi-Fi key of the previous owner, of the owner that the device was attached to.
Right.
And then, of course, you can log into their Wi-Fi network.
Right.
Now, as I say, they fixed it really quickly.
Okay.
They fixed it within a couple of weeks.
Right, okay.
Automatically, over the air, end users didn't notice anything, which is really good. That is a rarity in Internet of Things devices. Most companies don't fix the issues very easily.
Right, okay.
Taylor, for example, you can't fix that very easily. The Wi-Fi kettle, you can't fix that without a recall. They chose to release a new device instead,
Right.
which also had some issues as well. But
So the implication being that these examples could equally apply to the lighting industry. In fact, there have been some hacks.
Yeah.
Yeah,
you're absolutely right.
Right.
So the lighting industry needs to kind of stop necessarily thinking of themselves as just lighting. They're IoT manufacturers, and as a result, they're building IoT devices.
Right.
You take the Philips Hue, for example. They have the hub which controls all of their lights. Potentially, you could put other devices into that.
Right.
The Samsung SmartThings device can control your lights and loads of other stuff.
Right.
Your Nest thermostat controls your thermostat, but also a camera, and could control other systems
Right.
as well. So, these systems, just because it's a lighting system, doesn't mean that they just focus on lights. They could actually focus on lots of other things. So, yes, the issues do apply to them as well.
All right. Well, Tony G of Pen Test Partners, thank you very much for the
You're very
alert.
welcome.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.